since you're actually a linguist, is there anything you wish you could tell non-linguist polyglot influencers? So there's a lot of them out there right now, and I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I put one thing down, actually there's nothing I'm going to talk about before,
Mm.
is I think, and something that I've learned when I studied linguistics is that a lot of people, when they learn languages, I feel they focus too much on the native content, which is absolutely fine. I think, if that's only what you want to do, I'm not judging. I'm not saying do it differently if you don't want to. But I think it's important to know that depending on the language, because I guess in Japan, it's not the same thing, but in English for sure. The thing is that when you learn a language, especially English, you're going to be exposed to a lot of non-native speakers. In fact, the majority of people speaking English are non-native speakers. People are always surprised by that, but it's true.
That's true.
Like, it's our language. It's not your language, Andy.
Right.
No, I'm kidding. It belongs to foreigners.
Right.
No, I'm kidding. And I think that's quite important for some languages. Maybe for Japanese, less the case because you don't have as many foreigners speaking Japanese, so you might not need to be exposed to non-native content. But
not right
for
now.
English, for sure, for now.
You will
anyway.
be in the future. You'll need to be.
I'm sure, yeah. But yeah, so it's important to also be exposed to non-native content. And I say that because in my first year in England, there was lots of people that didn't have that nice British or American accent that I've learned on the textbooks, on TV shows. And that meant that in many cases, I couldn't communicate properly with people because I was not familiar with their accent. I'm not even necessarily talking about the extreme accents, extreme for me, like Indian accents or Asian accents, that can be quite difficult to understand, but even northern accents, which are native accents, are still kind of, no, I think I'm doing better with them now, but they can be more challenging.
They're hard.
Even the Southern American accent, I still struggle a bit, but I understand it much better than I used to. Yeah, but I love this accent, by the way. But anyway,
how do you deal with Scottish, like southern upland Scottish people? Can you understand anyone from there?
Well, I can, but usually what happens, because if I see them, it's not going to be in Scotland because I never actually been to Scotland, or Ireland, or northern countries in the UK. But they will be in England, and I think usually they know their accent is strong, so I think they will use different vocabulary. So the accent doesn't bother me too much. I think I understand them quite well, actually. But I remember once there was a student, I think she was Irish or Scottish, I cannot remember, but definitely a strong northern accent. And it was my French class. And I think she said, I think because her accent was so strong, I wasn't sure if she was speaking in English or French, which is kind of funny when you think about it. But because the words she was saying was similar, essentially. But she says, like, instead of saying, je suis en retard, I am late, I heard the word retard, and I was like, excuse me? I was very confused. I was like, and I knew she didn't say that because, the adults are not going to say retard out of nowhere. Right. Especially, in Brighton, I think in England in general, but in Brighton, like, it's not a word you want to say. That's very embarrassing for someone to be that rude. So just like, did you say retard? And I wasn't sure if I was fine for me to say it. But anyway, so I guess her accent in that case was a bit ambiguous for me, so I couldn't understand her like perfectly on that particular occasion. Right. But overall, I think I can understand a variety of accents. I try to expose myself to lots of different accents. Yeah.
That's a good point, especially for languages other than Japanese. But even in Japanese, like when you're in the country in particular, if you're not only going to meet foreigners who are from your country or who spoke your native language. A lot of people, especially on Twitter, actually forget this. There was a big argument that happened. There's always arguments on Twitter, way too many. Talking about this earlier. But there was a thing where a news company during, I think it was the typhoon, they released a tweet that was all in hiragana. And people were freaking out, saying, why didn't you just write it in English if you were going to write it in simple Japanese? And the best retort to that was, what makes you think that all of the people who are reading this news in Japan speak English? Like, not all foreigners in Japan are English speakers. And just towards that point, there's been lots of times I've met people in Japan who were either, for example, Filipino, from Thai, or from other countries, India, who spoke better Japanese than they did English. So we communicated in Japanese, and they were not native speakers of Japanese. So yeah, it is important, I think. I agree, to get exposure to other types of other accents.
But I guess for some languages, it might be fine to do that later on. Like Japanese, I guess your priority is not to be able to understand non-native speakers. But for English or French or Spanish, it's possible that it'd be with people that have an accent when they speak.
Definitely English.
And another thing that I wanted to add as well, this is super controversial. I always get crap for it, but I really don't like when non-linguists, and by linguist, I mean someone that studied linguistics academically, has done research, calls themselves linguist. Maybe I'm just bitter, I don't know, but I think it's ambiguous because then, one example, I don't want to name it, but I'm just going to be what's the word? Vague about it. Okay. But yeah, there's a person, let's sing on too much. But yeah, they self-proclaimed linguist and they hate linguistics. I was like, what? That made no sense. And I get that in the dictionary, you know, linguist is someone that speaks multiple languages and also someone that does research. But I don't know, I really wish people would find another word because, yeah, it would be the same. You know, a scientist is not someone that reads or likes to learn about science. Someone that has a degree and works in science, right? I mean, linguistics is
the
science,
exact example I was going to give. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a physicist.
And I just think, exactly, yeah.
I like to read books about physics, so I'm a physicist.
I'm a physician. Physicist? Oh, is it physicist? Yeah.
Physicist, yeah.
So,
it's
and I don't know, I just think it's just a bit strange to me. You know,
I would
as
add
a linguist
to that
as well, I can't you know, impose defininitions because that's not the job of a linguist. But I still have my thoughts. Obviously, I'm human. I've got beliefs.
Well, I think the important part about it is, or an important point to add to that is that you need to, like, people who are watching, you got to be careful about who you're taking advice from, because I think what the problem is with it is that it's basically false advertising. It's saying, hey, I'm a linguist, so I know without a doubt what I'm talking about because I study languages professionally, is what that means to me. Like, I studied languages in school. I do research. I probably publish papers. Like, you know, I know what I'm talking about. And that's what that word implies. It's got a lot of weight to it, more weight than a polyglot even. Like, if you tell me you're a polyglot, then I'm okay. You can teach me how to speak your language, probably. Maybe even you can give some advice. But if you start saying that you're a linguist when you're not, and you start throwing out things like, oh, this is useless and that's useless, and that's what those people are usually doing. They're usually saying, this is useless and buy my thing. Then
that's the thing, because like, I think the way I know someone is a linguist or not is because something we train to do. I mean, I say I'm a linguist, but obviously I don't have a PhD, if you want. You know, it's not like I've got all the expertise in the world. So, you know, I try to be humble when I say I'm a linguist still. And any linguist would be humble anyway. The way we trained is not to know things so much. I mean, we know things, but I guess the way we do research is you can never say, oh, I proved this, or I'm going to show that, or I found this new thing and this is for sure how this works. That's not possible. No linguist with proper training could ever say that. That's just such poor practice. Because you can never say, even like, yeah, it's a science, but it's not the same like as, you know, like sort of medical science. Even then, you know, there's still lots of gray areas, but it's not like, I don't know, chemistry, for example, is a bit more straightforward. You know, this plus this does that kind of thing. But linguistics, it's so hard to say for sure that something is the case, basically.
But even in general sciences, like, there's lots of things that, yes, you can say this plus this will cause this reaction, but we don't know why half the time. Like, yeah, it does this, but we don't know why, nor do we know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, there's no absolutes, really, I don't think, when you're coming to science like that. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Good advice.
Even more, because language is it's not something you can touch or manipulate as such. So that makes it so hard to prove things.
And it's always evolving.
Yeah. And in theory, you could only prove a language fact. Yeah, exactly. A language fact if you manage to study literally the entire human species, and in a very specific timeline, you know, because as you said, in 10 years, something could change and that just throws off your results completely. Obviously, that's impractical. No one can study everyone. That's just impossible.
It is impossible.
Yeah, so the only thing you can do is like try to show like evidence towards something that's as sort of, I don't know, what's the word?
Theory.
Firm you can be. Yeah. Essentially, you try to demonstrate things. And it's not so much that, you know, you can't, I think linguistics can be quite frustrating because you can't prove anything, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that we can't have some sort of understanding of something.
Right.
But it's sort of in the middle. You have to, that's why you have to be humble. A linguist shouldn't be saying things like, do this, do that, because they can't. That's just poor practice.
Right.
You can only say, well, I've done research, and it seems to me that based on my research, it seems that this happens, or, you know, that kind of thing, essentially. It's,
right.
Yeah.
So if someone tells you,
language, yeah.
So if someone tells you guys, this is the best way to learn a language, they're probably not a linguist.
Based on science, sometimes.
Based on science, oh my God. No, probably not.
Yeah.
Based on my individual personal experience and maybe one of my friends, is probably the correct answer in that situation.
Yeah. And whenever I read an article and they're like, oh, linguist or scientist, I've proven this, I'm like, I'm stopping reading. I know it's not. I mean, it might be that it's done by real linguists, but the article is not going to, it's going to be biased. Too biased. It's not going to be like neutral enough.
And they're probably trying to sell something.
Exactly. Yeah. And to be fair, like saying something is fine.
No, that's not the point.
Because eventually we'll sell something. I mean, I hope that we both will. But I think what I'll hope to do is to be transparent. I'm like, this is just a way, you know, I don't have any other sort of agenda than to sell something that I really think is helpful.
Exactly.
But it's not going to be the method. I think it's very important to be open to that.
I am actually selling something right now on my Patreon, and I hope I'm very clear about that. Like, because you signed up to my Patreon, you are not magically going to become fluent in Japanese. It's not that. It's just some helpful material that I think will be helpful, and it won't help everyone. Like, there's nothing that is perfect for everyone, and that's what I think is most important with language learning. You got to find what's right for you.
That's very important. I think that what you said. I think as a content creator, and probably product creator eventually, I think it's okay to just accept that you can't help everyone, and it's not the point. I think it's better if you sort of kind of more specific, you have a specific audience. So that's why my product, I won't target like beginners and like advanced learners. I will have to sort of decide and narrow it down a bit.
Right.
Because I think, you know, you can't do everything at the same time, you know, especially one person. Maybe later on I might, if I've got a team or something, but not now anyway.
No, you gotta start somewhere, and and if you can make something that is useful for people, then you might as well. But it's not going to save the world or make every single person perfect in the language. It can just it can help maybe.
I'm not going to prove anything ever.
No, no, of course not. Nobody will, I don't think.